Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has scrapped plans for ULEZ-style zones across the country. The party has ditched their commitment aimed at cutting carbon emissions from polluting vehicles. This is a very interesting indeed. Of course, this follows their Uxbridge by-election defeat, which was largely blamed on London Mayor Sadiq Khan vowing to press ahead with further ULEZ zones. So a Labour source has told The Telegraph that clean air zones are a Conservative policy and that Labour is not in favour of extra burdens on drivers during a Tory-made cost of living crisis. This is an interesting one because, Paul, the Labour Party used to hold the government to account on their net zero pledge. They used to hold the government to account on all of their green schemes and not doing enough to cut emissions. And now they seem to be backtracking. Is this because they think the working people aren't with them on these types of things?
I think that's exactly what it is. They've met reality. They met reality in the Uxbridge by-election, and they're meeting reality every day that this debate is ongoing. And ordinary working people, I think, are becoming more and more concerned about the price that they particularly will be asked to pay in terms of the rush to net zero. So I think this is a calculated strategy by Starmer, albeit the right one, because, to be honest, Emily, the very idea that in the middle of a cost of living crisis, you should be seeking to impose more and more green taxes effectively on people. Look, we're all environmentalists. We all want a nice green planet. We all want to...
I wouldn't say I'm an environmentalist.
OK, but...
I mean, I'd like the environment to be nice, but
well,
I couldn't say I was an environmentalist.
No, OK, but in terms of, people wanting the planet to be able to thrive, yes, and not to kind of boil in terms of some of the language that we've seen, and challenging some of the worst aspects of climate change, yes, we want that, but at the same time, it cannot be at any cost. We need a bit of pragmatism around this. We've seen too much what I call environmental militancy instead of environmental moderation. And particularly, and people are not stupid out there, they see the carbon emissions that are being chucked out by countries like China and the US, which absolutely dwarf what we churn out. And people say, so, you're asking us to inflict all this punishment on ourselves. We might see whole industries and jobs disappear. Renewables are not reliable.
It's a balancing act for them, isn't it?
And at the same time, China and the US and other countries are doing... Is this not just mere posturing? And it's hard to avoid the conclusion that actually for a lot of politicians in this country, it is posturing.
Yes, and these types of green schemes are regressive insofar as they hit the poorest the hardest, of course, because they're the ones who have to... either spend huge amounts of money on upgrading their vehicles or pay daily charges. Now, it's quite interesting, Claire, because a commitment to ULEZ-style schemes was in Labour's transport pledges in their document, their policy handbook, only a couple of months ago. Very quick change of mind on that. The Labour Party under Keir Starmer seems to be making a lot of U-turns, a lot of changes of heart.
Well, it does, and it's interesting that Keir Starmer has said that ULEZ, that sort of UK-wide ULEZ schemes wouldn't come in, but he doesn't go so far as to say that the London expansion shouldn't go ahead. And I think this is the real crux of the matter. It's all very well to sort of change your policy ideas, and governments have done this and opposition has done this time after time. But it's very, very hypocritical to say the rest of the country should be absolutely fine.
Claire, are they scared of... Oh, sorry to interrupt you, but are they scared of Sadiq Khan?
Well, it does look a little bit like that.
He keeps winning in London, so they can't touch him.
And that's how it feels. And given that the Uxbridge by-election really was a single-issue by-election, it was ULEZ. You would have thought the Labour Party could see the writing was on the wall for schemes like that, but it won't go anywhere near to criticising Sadiq Khan or doing anything for those voters in London who look to Labour to be their support.
And the other thing is, public transport in the state that it's in, it's unfair, in my view, to put... I'm not a car fan. I don't particularly like cars. I think the country would be better off to a certain degree without them, but they exist, and, people will use them.
I love how anti-car you are.
And unless you get public transport being what it should be, and at the moment it's dirty, it's unreliable, it's expensive, then penalising people for using their cars, I think, is wrong. If you had a much better public transport system, there might be an argument for it, but we're not in that position. And during a cost of living crisis, I think it's a dangerous game to play with the electorate.